Today I'm going to show you how to make a continuous chain shamrock garland. This is very similar to the continuous heart chain garland that I posted a video tutorial on a few weeks ago, and I will link that video in the description box right below in case you want to check that out. Today we're going to make little shamrocks, and we continuously go along a chain creating these cute little shamrocks as we go. We will put little hooks, little loops on each end, so if you wanted to string this up, makes it pretty easy with these little loops here. It's a fairly easy project once you get the idea of chaining continuously along and working the shamrock pattern every so often. It's a breeze. I am just using some acrylic scrap ball yarn in green, sort of a neon green, and a 6mm crochet hook. You'll also need scissors, but no yarn needle for this one. Once you have all that together, let's get started. To start our shamrock chain garland, we're going to put a slip knot onto our hook, and I like to chain 15 to start and then slip stitch back into that first chain to create a little loop that you can use for hanging, but that's optional. So I'm just going to make my 15 chains and create a hanging loop. So here's my 15 chains. I'm going to slip stitch right back into that first one. And now I've got my little hanging loop that I can use to hang this garland if I want. Now I'm going to chain 20. So I have my little loop here. I have 20 chains here. You can, if you don't want that much space in between, this is completely customizable. So you can chain 15, 10, 20, 30, however many chains that you want between your little hanging loop and your first little shamrock. Once you have that number of chains, we're going to chain 10, and this is the chain that will work our shamrock into. Once you have your extra 10 chains, we're going to slip stitch back into the fourth chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Go back into this little chain and just slip stitch. At this point, we're going to turn. Without turning your chain, you just want to turn that little loop that we created. Chain 3, and you're going to work a treble, so yarn over twice, and put your hook right into the center of that little loop that we made. And then finish your treble into that same little loop. You can see we've kind of created that center now. We're going to work a double crochet and a treble crochet. At this point, we want to chain 3 and slip stitch back into that space that we're creating. And there's our first little shamrock petal or leaf. Chain 3, treble crochet. Again, we're working right back into that same space. So we want to do that again. We want a treble, a double, a treble, chain 3, and slip stitch. So now we have our 2 little leaves. We're going to do that one more time. Chain 3, treble, double, treble, chain 3, and work a slip stitch right back into that center space. And there is our little shamrock leaf. We got the stem here, and we're going to single crochet into the next 6 to get back to where we started the extra chain 10. So you can just find the first stitch and just single crochet up along each stitch into the next 6. And now we've got our hanging shamrock, our first one. And there's where I started. I chained my 20 for the space in between the hook and my little shamrock. Worked the shamrock, and now with those single crochets back up the 6 chains, we're back working along this chain. So you can go ahead and chain as many chains as you want for the space in between your shamrocks. I'm going to go ahead and do another 20 chains. So I have another 20 chains in between my shamrock. You want to make sure not to twist these chains, otherwise your shamrocks will tend to turn around and they'll be facing the wrong way, which is not the end of the world. If this is just going to be hanging as a garland, the front and the back are pretty similar. So there's our front, and it's not that big of a deal if the back is showing, because you're going for this shape in this project. So I just chained my 20. I'm going to chain an additional 10 for my shamrock. We're going to work a shamrock now. Back into the 4th chain away from the hook, we're going to slip stitch. And that creates our ring. At this point, we want to turn this little ring that we've created without turning the chain. So you kind of have to hold both together. Chain 3 and work our shamrock. Treble right into that center. Double. Treble. Chain 3. And slip stitch right back into that center space. And there's our first little shamrock leaf. We're going to work this 2 more times. So chain 3, treble right into the center, double, treble, chain 3, and slip stitch. We got our 2 little shamrock leaves. We're going to work this 1 more time. Chain 3, treble, double, treble, chain 3, slip stitch. Alright, now we want to work back up along the next 6 stitches, so just put a single crochet into the next 6 stitches, and that one right under your shamrock sometimes is tough to find. There we go. We've got 2 little shamrocks now. So you can keep working this pattern for as long as you want your garland to be. And then once you have that length, I will show you how to create the other little chain for your other hook on the finishing side. And then the best part about this, again, you don't have to worry about weaving in your ends. We're just going to tie these little ends and snip our yarn, and we're done. There's no weaving in for these little applique shamrocks. So continue on, and I will see you back once I get to the end of my garland. Alright, so I have made 8 little shamrocks along my little chain here. I have chained 20, which is the space that I want in between my last little shamrock and where I start to create the last little loop hook. So once you have that number of chains that you did for the space from this hook to your first, to the start of your first shamrock, we're going to chain an additional 15. And then we're going to work back into the 15th chain from the hook. So go ahead and count back, and then we're going to slip stitch to create our finishing little loop. So my 15th chain here, I'm just going to slip stitch, and I've got my second little loop. At this point, I'm just going to slip stitch into the next one, and then I can fasten off. I cut my yarn, just going to pull that through. The best part of this project is you don't have to worry about weaving these ends in. I am just going to kind of tie these around, pulling them up as close as I can to the start of that little loop. And there we go. I might do it one more time just to make sure I have a tight little knot so this doesn't come out. And I can snip this little end. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to create a little knot around that chain. And just pull it up so it's relatively close to the end of that little loop here. Pull it tight. I'm going to do it one more time. And now I can cut these ends. And there it is, our chain shamrock garland with no ends to weave in. It hangs really cute. You've got all these little shamrocks hanging down. And like I said, if you happen to twist as you're going, the back is just as neat as the front. It's almost unnoticeable when you're hanging it up. And the hardest part about this project is keeping that chain relatively untwisted as you're working. but otherwise it works up really quick. Like I said, no ends to weave in. A fun little St. Patrick's Day crochet project. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give a like. And until next time, happy crocheting everyone. Bye!